Hey, welcome everyone to a review of the Sennheiser HD450BT over-the-ear wired and wireless headphones. That's right, it supports both capabilities as well as active noise cancelling. Now, if you want to see the written version of this review, you can find a link to my website in the video description. And you can consider them mid-tier headphones, and that's because of their pricing and functionality. So for pricing, it's $230 here in Canada, and over in the United States, it's priced at $180. So going back to connectivity, as I mentioned, it supports a wired connection. It uses auxiliary 2.5 millimeter to 3.5 millimeter. 2.5 obviously going into the headphones themselves. The cable itself is measuring in quite a lengthy 59 inches, and the end of the cable is an L shape. Thankfully, some good news is that if the headphone batteries do die, you can continue using them with a wired auxiliary connection. Wireless technology is using Bluetooth 5.0, and Sennheiser advertises a range of about 32 to 33 feet. However, in my testing, I was able to get about 45 feet with a door in the way closed, as well as a wall in the way, so vastly superior than what Sennheiser claims in my testing. It does support dual connectivity for Bluetooth. What that basically means, you can have two active connections at the same time. Example I always use is a cell phone as one device and a computer as just an example. If you're listening to music on the computer and all of a sudden the cell phone rings, it'll automatically pause the music and you can answer the call quickly, which is pretty cool. In terms of how many devices you can keep in memory, so how many devices you can pair without having to repair them all over again, the maximum Sennheiser claims is 8 devices. In my testing, I did up to 4, which is quite a bit. Accessories included in the box is a soft carrying case, which is not very practical for 2 reasons. One being is that, well, it's a soft carrying case. It's not going to really protect your investment, and this is mid-tier priced headphones. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 explained shortly when I cover the design and body of the headphones. Also included is a USB-A to USB-C cable. Unfortunately, it is not pure USB-C, which is rather disappointing. This cable is measuring in about 59 inches. And of course, also included is a originally mentioned auxiliary cable. And there's no power adapter. Sennheiser expects you to plug it in directly to a laptop or computer for charging, or to use your own power adapter, which is pretty typical of most manufacturers. The body itself is decent enough to look at. The design is far from unique because it looks almost identical to the Sennheiser HD350BT, which is a pure wireless version of these headphones. That version is a little cheaper. It does not support a wired connection. You can find a link to that in my YouTube channel if you want to look it up. It also looks pretty much similar to the 400S, also from Sennheiser. That is the wired version of these headphones. Again, a review of that is in my channel. The body has simple plastic finish with some minor gray accents and the Sennheiser logos on each side. Now, what I mentioned about the carrying case is due to this issue. It supports a folding design for the headphones, but it's not done well because even though it folds in, the ear cups don't fold in flat. So when you want to put it in something like, say, a laptop bag when you're traveling or something, it's going to bulge out slightly. I'm not sure what the design process with this. It's the exact same issue you have with the 400S and the 350BT. Comfort-wise, it's not bad. It's actually quite comfortable. I can wear them for about 3.5 hours straight. No sweaty ears. Ears don't get irritated or my head. Nothing to that extent. Not sweaty either. I also test this with my non-prescription glasses just for testing purposes. Even with glasses, it's fairly comfortable. It's due to a couple of reasons. One is that the ear cushioning is rather thick and soft, feels very nice against the head. The interior of the headband also has some minor cushioning. I wish it was a little bit thicker, but it's just enough to get the job done. For people that have no hair, it'll remain somewhat comfortable for you. Not only that, the headband flex itself isn't too bad. It's not too tight, but not too loose either. It seems to be just right, which is helping for that comfort factor. Now, there is a catch though with the comfort level. It's very similar issue to the 350BT. Is that the ear cushioning, the opening itself, isn't that wide. So for people that have regular size ears, kind of like myself, it fits a little snug, but it's bearable, it's comfortable. If you have longer ears that are, well, just bigger ears in general, the way it's gonna fit in there, it might be too snug for you. It might not be that comfortable, your ears might get sweaty because the opening is designed to wrap around your ear as close as possible. Not that well thought out of a design. If you look at other headphones, especially over-the-ear headphones, even the Momentum 4 from Sennheiser, which is one of the best headphones I've ever reviewed, the opening for the ear cups is bigger. I'm not sure why the 350BT and the 450BT suffer from the same design process. It's not well thought out, unfortunately. Now, when it comes to working out, can you use them? Well, yeah, sure. Because if you jerk your head, they almost doesn't move at all. It stays very sturdy, very secure and snug. Although they're over-the-ear headphones and your ears will sweat excessively when you're working out, so not gonna be that comfortable, but at least you have the information available for your choosing. When it comes to choosing which preference you want, it does come in a black and white color. It's weighing 238 grams, which is not bad for the weight. The body feels firm and shouldn't be concerning for a couple of drops. Hopefully that never happens, of course. Although it's a little disappointing because that unnecessary folding design makes it a little bit weaker. Anytime you have folding design on headphones, it always makes it a little bit weaker, but they still feel not bad in the hand, rather firm despite that caveat. Now looking it up in the manual, it specifically says to keep them dry and not get them dusty, so that automatically means it's not water or dust resistant. In terms of damage on that topic still, is that the ear cups, if they get ripped or torn or whatever, you got to replace them. Sennheiser does not sell replacement units, but you can get replacement units from third-party sellers if you look hard enough on the internet. For adjusting the length, the headband uses a notch mechanism to adjust up and down. It doesn't use a slider to adjust the length. The ear cups can do decent rotation with going up, down, forward, and back to accommodate most people's head shapes and ears. One of the reasons I don't like folding designs for headphones is because if you are traveling, you have them on your head, just put them on your neck, right? The only time I really put my headphones in the carrying case is when I actually reach the hotel room. But that's a side point. I'm kind of just going on, rambling. When looking left and right, it feels not too bad. If your neck is a little bit shorter than mine, it might rub against the framing of the body, but for me, it's not bad. Looking down, it does rub against my chin. It's a little difficult to look down. Just something I wanted to mention for you. When it comes to the controls, all of them are on the right ear cup. So the front of the right ear cup has a button for powering the device on and off, and holding it activates Bluetooth pairing mode. While the headphones are on, simply tapping that power button will activate ANC mode, which is active noise cancelling, or switch between to transparency mode, which I'll explain both very shortly. But moving along, backwards on the right ear cup, you have the auxiliary port for that wired connection, volume rocker buttons, and a slider. So pressing the slider down will either play pause music, and sliding it up will go to the next track, sliding it down will go to the previous track. The slider button is also used for answering or hanging up calls. The slider button also has a whole bunch of other functions when it comes to phone calls, but I'm not going to cover them all in this review because it'll get too lengthy. At the back, there's a dedicated button for activating your voice assistant when the headphones are paired with your smartphone. In my testing, I use it with Android and Google Assistant. Google Assistant is pretty adequate when it comes to responding to my commands. It does a pretty good job of what you expect of the voice assistant. However, there's a weird thing I noticed with the Google Assistant with these headphones only, and also the 350BT. It's a headphone weird issue, not Google Assistant issue, is that when you press the button, it doesn't have the doo-doo sound to let you know that Google Assistant is listening. Instead, what happens is that side tone mode turns on, which basically allows you to hear your own voice, to see how loud are you talking. It's great when used from phone calls. I'll show how that works in the app shortly. That's the only indicator you have to know when it's listening. Not a big deal, but just something weird that I find. I'm not sure why all the controls are crowded on one ear cup. It would have been much better if Sennheiser had divided them up evenly, because sometimes I frequently press the wrong button on that single right ear cup. The last thing in regards to control is that there's no active play pause. What that basically means is that when you're listening to content, you have your headphones on, everything's cool. When you take the headphones off, it'll automatically pause whatever content you're listening to, and then putting them back on, it'll detect it and then resume that content. It's not present on these headphones. Now that function doesn't have to be present at mid-tier priced headphones. Just want to let you know that it's not in this case, so at least you know that information. So as I mentioned earlier, it does support ANC, active noise cancelling. And my experience is a little weird. So get this, when it comes to low humming sounds that are even super loud, it does an amazing job. So what happened recently is we got duct cleaning done in our house. If anyone's ever done that before, you'll know that the machine that they use is an industrial size machinery. It's super loud. It is like unbearably loud depending on where you are and they're doing the work. But the humming noise is loud, but it's a low humming sound, like kind of more bass focused, if you will. These headphones silence out most of that noise. I was incredibly shocked at how well of a job it did. Better than it would than sitting on an airplane, on a bus, or whatever. I was super surprised. However, where it disappointed me greatly is that when it comes to vocals, people talking a normal volume just in the same room as you, maybe 5 to 10 feet away, it does almost nothing. If I were to turn the headphones off, so I just have passive noise cancelling because they're over the ear, covers up your ears, it sounds the same. So low humming sounds, if you're traveling on a bus or plane or whatever, it'll do a great job. But if you're on a bus and there's people talking often, these headphones will do nothing for that. Now, when it comes to transparency mode, what that basically means is that you have the headphones on. The microphones on the headphones will project exterior sound into the headphones so you can hear surroundings as naturally as possible. Anything that's within 10 feet sounds rather clear. Not bad. Does a pretty good job at this price point, surprisingly. Anything 10 feet or beyond becomes difficult to hear. They perform as they should at this price tag though. And of course, I can't really comment on passive noise cancelling much more because you can't use that function. That's right, you're forced to use ANC mode or transparency mode. You can't just turn off that technology and use regular headphone mode, which would in turn then conserve and probably save more battery for longer usage. Unfortunately, you can't do that, which is a bummer. Sennheiser claims 30 hours of battery usage. In my multiple battery drain tests for ANC mode, I actually averaged closer to 32 hours. And strangely enough, with transparency mode, I actually averaged closer to 50 hours, which is kind of nuts. However, you can't extend that battery performance even further. As I mentioned earlier, you cannot disable that technology and just have regular headphone mode, unfortunately. And the USB-C charging port is located on the bottom of the right ear cup. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is a microphone sample in a quiet setting with a 450BT microphone. Now I'm going to do a switch over to a noisy replicating environment using my camera microphone so you can hear how noisy it really is, and then switch over to the 450BT microphone to see if it will isolate a lot of the background noise if you were, say, taking a phone call with it. And then lastly, we're going to replicate a windy setting with the headphones. Okay, so right now we're switching over to the camera microphone. As you can see, it's pretty noisy in here. And quickly switching over to the 450BT microphone, you can make a judgment call as to what you think. I'm actually going to stop talking so you can listen to the background noise for yourself. Okay, and lastly is the wind test, kind of moving the microphone around to get the wind right into from the fan. The fan is about 5 feet away from me. You can make a judgment for yourself as to what you think. Okay, when it comes to audio, it supports SBC and AAC, which is no surprise, although I am very pleased to report it does support aptX. But there's a catch. Out of the box with a flat profile, just like almost any other Sennheiser headphones I've reviewed so far, it does great. Everything is super well balanced, bass, mids, and highs. One is not overpowering over the other. Now, when it comes to adjusting it in the equalizer in the app, which again, I'll show shortly on in the app section, it doesn't do much, or almost nothing, to be honest. And so let's start with the bass. So if I increase the bass in the equalizer, it does increase it slightly, but not as big enough of a punch as you expect at this price point. It performs at something almost half the price or even less than that. That is very disappointing. So when it comes to mids, it does almost nothing at all. I noticed almost zero difference to various types of music and genres. Couldn't notice it. When it comes to highs, it depends on the song you're listening to. That's a given with most headphones. But one thing I noticed that the ones that it worked well with, it made the song sound fuller, more upbeat, more energy behind it, which is great. And I want to comment really quickly that the Sony WH-CH720N, which is in a similar price bracket, that performs way better in terms of equalizer adjustment and sound. I'll put a link to that review in the video description. You might want to check that out instead if you're really that curious about mid-tier priced headphones. When it comes to audio performance and wearing glasses, because the frame kind of pokes out of the headphones, just a tiny bit of bass leaks out, but nothing that'll ruin the song for you. When it comes to mids and highs, there's almost no audio quality lost at all. Okay, so we're diving into the app, and one of the things I have to mention right off the bat is that the app is very limited. These are mid-tier price headphones. I'm not expecting, a whole bunch of bells and whistles, but this is really disappointing. But regardless, we're gonna jump into it anyway. So this is what you see on the main screen, and jumping into the equalizer, very basic. You have bass, mids, and highs, treble. And honestly, even though it's not a full-blown equalizer, you shouldn't be too disappointed because other manufacturers do a pretty good job with this. Where the disappointment itself is how it adjusts with the audio quality, which I mentioned earlier. So not the best experience I've seen. When it comes to sound check, what this basically does is make you listen to some audio and then kind of rate your preference on, what do you think about the sound quality? And then from there, it'll try to automatically adjust the equalizer for you to some preset settings, something like this, based on your preferences, and set it to that. The problem you have here is that if you touch the equalizer just slightly like this, you go back to sound check, everything's reset. And what you see here is the same screen. It'll be like, hey, go through the entire process all over again. I didn't even notice that it made much of a difference. I found that the sound check feature on the 350BTs and the 450BTs here is more of a gimmick than anything else. Side tone, as mentioned earlier, it allows you to hear yourself while on a phone call. It's great if you want to hear if you're talking too loudly. And that's pretty much it. If you go over to the Discover tab, this is like other things and services and products that Sennheiser offers, kind of like advertisements. And then of course the last thing is, what do you want to see on the home screen? That's the tile section. And of course, if firmware updates are available. I would honestly suggest you probably reconsider getting the 450BT if you had your eye on it. The 720N from Sony might be more up your alley and it's slightly cheaper. Basically, I think Sennheiser could have done a lot better. They know what they're doing. The Momentum 4 is evidence of that. I don't know what happened here. But you have all the information if you want to reconsider and buy them anyway. At least you know what you're getting yourself into, and that's a wrap for this review. So if you found this video useful, be sure to check out my social links and website link in the video description. Hit the like button, it does help, subscribe, and thanks for watching.